Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 89, Safety Training Completion Rate. In today's episode, we're going to continue our journey in safety metrics and monitoring and measuring performance. I found that this is one that really helps me out. Um, it's hard to get everybody 100% trained in everything at all times. But like all things, you have to sit down, you identify the job, you identify the task, you identify the hazards, you then say, this is going to be the minimum level of training that we give people. In a perfect world, of course, we just kind of keep on training and training and training. But I know that time and money is not endless out there. Um, and when it really comes down to it, as a safety professional, you have limited power out there. It's really the supervisor, it's really that management structure that's in place. But let's sit down and kind of break down how that we're going to monitor and measure this. Let's look at it just a little definition first before we really get into it. So, safety training completion rate is a crucial occupational safety metric that measures the percentage of employees or workers who have successfully completed the required training within a specified time frame. So, I think it's really important to anchor it to something. Whatever the um, whatever the training topic is, it is then anchored to a time frame, and whether that be on a monthly or a yearly, whatever kind of basis that we choose after then. So let's sit down and break it down just a little bit more then. So when we look at the formula that we're going to use, it's your standard percentage rate test. So it's the number of employees completed the safety training divided by the total number of employees that require the safety training times 100. It gives you that percentage rate that's out there. Um, like all things, set a realistic expectation at first, then, and of course, as you get better, you can start to ramp up the expectation. But like all things, when you're first starting out, you really got to get buy-in. You really got to get it going, and then you kind of get better as time goes on. Then, so I like to sit down and monitor and measure mine by the training event and also on an annual basis. So if you have 100 people, you you may have where 100 people, each one's taking five different tasks out there. So one month you could have 20 people, another month you could have 40, another month you could have three, very specific. So you're just kind of sitting down and monitoring and measuring this. And of course, like all things, you're reporting out on this. You just can't say, I have this secret metric that nobody is ever going to know. We tie this metric to the site goals. And part of the site goals, of course, are communicated on a monthly basis because it's just like any site goal. You're talking about production, you're talking about quality, you're talking about safety. Same thing. So the safety training completion rate indicates that the organization is effectively managing the safety training. So I know that that's definitely a mouthful out there, but it's really hard to sit down and as we were saying before, you have 100 people with all these individual training topics and things that has to be done then. So when you have a really high completion rate, it basically says you have a really strong commitment to safety and compliance. Then low means that you have some gaps in your training. You have some gaps in your training program that's out there that has to be addressed then. Sometimes these gaps are in the form of when we set these goals, it always sounds good, but once that the management really gets into it, they really didn't understand it was going to take this much time and this much effort. So a lot of times, the safety professional can only do so much. You have to have the person supervisor really in charge of this training, um, because they can always say, "Well, I've decided that I'm going to have my person continue to work on production. They're not going to participate in this training." So really has to be the supervisor that drives this, has that really good attitude towards safety. So let's talk about a couple of key considerations that really help to improve your safety training completion rate. Have clear training requirements out there. Make sure that people really understand exactly what they have to take. And of course, you're going to look at new hire orientation, new employees, existing staff, all that good stuff then. So you just can't say, I've decided that we're going to do training and I'm not willing to tell anybody what the schedule is, and I'll tell you if you missed or didn't miss the training. Second thing, accessible training materials. So a lot of times these courses are going to be over the internet now, and that makes things a whole lot easier. Of course, um, in person training I think is always better, but it's really hard to hold a training event and literally say I'm shutting down the production line for 2 hours. Every single person will be here for this training event that's there. But if it's computer based, you could always say 10, 10 people are working X line. It's up to the supervisor to make sure that all 10 of those people are done in 30 days, which means it doesn't matter if they're done on day one or they're done on day 30. It's the supervisor's job to drive this and to make sure that it gets done. So we also want to go back and update on a regular basis to make sure that our contents are up to date and that we're really training people on what they have to be trained on. Sometimes training is almost used as a vaccination. I've decided that somebody doesn't know enough about chemicals, so every single person on the plant, no matter what, will take the following courses. That is a strategy, but a lot of times that tortures people. Really try and sit down, well, from my perspective, really try to sit down and target your training for the folks that really need this training out there. Scheduling and tracking, we got to do a good job of scheduling and tracking. And we have to give people, because we're all busy, you would think that we're all grown adults and we can manage our schedule and all that stuff. But a lot of times I found that if you tell somebody for the month of June, you have to take confined space training, and here's the website address, and here's this, and here's that, and all that stuff. Not that a person doesn't want to do it, but if we come back to them on July 4th and say, "Hey, you missed your training for the month," you know, a lot of times people are just busy, and we think people are reading our emails. So I have found that some people are so completely overwhelmed with the amount of emails and messages they get that they can literally only focus so much. And when I've gone back and asked people why something isn't done, they didn't even open up the email. So at times we have to go around and do that personal touch just as much as we do emails. We kind of can, as we're walking through the plant floor, we then say, hey, so has anybody had a chance to take that training yet and do this, and kind of get people talking about it also. And we want to get feedback from the people. We want to make sure that the training is effective that's out there. I have not found a 100% training class that's going to cover 100% of my needs at all times. There's a lot of times where it covers 150% of my needs. And I know that they literally have to click through a slide or two of something that will not apply to their job, but it's the very best that we can do to give them that education. So always get that feedback. Always make sure it's meeting their needs out there. And then finally, compliance reporting. We need to sit down and say, so here's our accurate records. So that's why I really like to do a computer course. In person is better. I get that, but if you're doing multiple plants, hundreds of people, there's literally no way that this can ever happen then. So that is it for episode number 89, Safety Training Completion Rate. This is where we're going to sit down, monitor, measure, and track the training, make sure folks are getting the training they need to even start with, and then afterwards making sure that they take this training on whatever basis that we deem. Are they taking it every 6 months? Are they doing it on an annual basis? Are you doing some tasks like lockout, tagout, compressed gas, and all that stuff? Are you doing it a computer based? But like all things, a person can pass a test, but can they really apply the material? You then go back and do a little hands-on audit afterwards then. So episode number 89 is complete. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Thank you and have a safe day.